A Guardian's primary role is to draw the enemy's focus upon themselves, in effect to direct damage away from his fellows and keeping them from harm's way as best he can. Guardians do this with a variety of skills they have at their disposal, drawing attention to themselves effectively by generating large amounts of threat. A Guardian also has a secondary role to provide defensive support to his fellows by strengthening their defenses, redirecting damage to themselves when necessary, removing enemy corruptions, and coordinating fellowship maneuvers if needed and when possible. So let's jump straight into this guide and dive right in. Right here, we're going to take a look at the correct and incorrect use of a forced attack. I'm going to grab this target with Fray the Edge and stop attacking. So here my fellowship member is going to throw out a few attacks and you'll see how fast he pulls the target's attention. With just a few attacks, he's already pulled the target's attention. Why this is? Because forced attacks do not generate any threat themselves. They should be used to copy threat from other fellowship members. Now let's take a look at the more effective way of using a forced attack. This time we're going to let our fellowship member attack first. We'll wait about 5 seconds before we throw out a forced attack. In this way, any threat that he has generated, we can copy to ourselves. For demonstration, I'm not going to attack this target, and we'll see how long it will take for him to pull the target back. Unless, of course, he's already dead. Now, let's jump into threat generation skills that we have as a Guardian. We have the entire block chain, which is Shield Blow, Shield Swipe, Bash, Shield Smash, and Shield Taunt. I call this the block chain because you need a block response to actually start going through these chain of skills. If for any reason you can't get a block response when you need it, you can open with Shield Blow, and this will force open a block response. Next, we have Vexing Blow, Sweeping Cut, and Litany of Defiance. These skills are not tied to any response skills and can be used when off cooldown at any time. All the skills shown here also provide extra threat generation on top of any threat gained from the damage itself. This time round, I've asked my fellowship member to go nuts on his damage, whilst all I use are my threat generation skills. At no point will I be using any forced attacks. As you'll see, the target's attention will be primarily focused on me, as my threat generation is higher than that of my DPS comrade. This is a more effective way of holding the target's attention, saving your forced attacks for emergency use. As a blue line Guardian, every time we use a shield skill, we have a chance to apply 1 stack of fortification to ourselves. This can stack up to 5 times, and in total giving you a plus 10% physical and tactical mitigation boost. Also, once you reach 5 stacks, you'll apply a raid-wide buff, applying plus 2% physical and tactical mitigation boost to the entire raid. Take special note that once you've spent 35 trait points into the blue line tree, the chance to apply a stack of fortification increases to 50%. Now, let's take a quick look at Guardian's Ward and Adaptability. Guardian's Ward is a short-term self-buff which will buff your block rating, partial block rating, and tactical mitigation rating. The default time for this buff is 10 seconds but can be extended to 20 seconds with the correct legacy. This skill requires constant refreshing to maintain highest defenses. Adaptability is a passive buff that applies on you every time you receive a hit. This can stack up to 3 times and significantly boosts your block and parry ratings. Now let's take a closer look at fortification in combat. I'm already in the midst of building up my fortification stacks here, and now I've reached 5 stacks. This effectively applies a plus 10% physical and tactical mitigation boost, which is permanent for the entire duration of combat. Here my tactical mitigation is slightly under the cap. So now let's apply Guardian's Ward for a little more tactical mitigation boost. Guardian's Ward has now effectively boosted my tactical mitigation by roughly 4%. Also notice that Guardian's Ward only lasts for a short duration of time, so you'll need to regularly refresh Guardian's Ward. Now let's cash in our 5 stacks of fortification to double our mitigation boost from 10% to 20%. This effect only lasts for 15 seconds. After Litany of Defiance has expired, you'll need to reapply your stacks of fortification by going through your blockchain. When reaching 5 stacks of fortification, not only do you apply a mitigation boost to your own defenses, but you also apply a mitigation boost to the entire raid by plus 2% to physical and tactical mitigation. Using Litany of Defiance to consume your stacks of fortification also applies a fellowship-wide redirect of damage. The amount of damage redirected is based on the stacks of fortification that you consumed. Consuming 5 stacks of fortification means you'll be absorbing 50% of the entire fellowship's damage for 15 seconds. This puts you at a higher risk of receiving more damage and should only be considered for situational tactics. Adaptability is a passive buff to your block and parry ratings. This means you don't need to use any skills to actually apply this buff to yourself. The buff will stack on you when you receive a hit. This stacks up to 3 times and significantly boosts your block and parry ratings. Combine this with Guardian's Ward for even higher block and parry ratings. Take note that using block and parry response skills will consume the stacks and reset these stacks back to 0. So consider this for situational tactics, where one might need higher block or parry chance. Start your shield skill rotation with Shield Blow to activate your blockchain response skills. After using Shield Swipe, in a situation with multiple targets, use Shield Taunt to draw attention of more than one target nearby, opening up the use of Shield Smash, stunning your targets and giving yourself time to breathe. When starting any fight, you want to jump straight into your shield skills as soon as possible to build those stacks of fortification and buff your fellowship. As a special tip, let's go back a bit. Shield Smash is actually a bugged skill, but you can still use this to your advantage. Shield Smash uses your target's frontal area of attack instead of your own, so take this into consideration when targeting to use Shield Smash. Smashing Stab is a Swiss Army knife skill, which can produce one of 3 outputs: a bleed, a stun, or a fellowship maneuver. The fellowship maneuver is more invaluable, so we'll just be looking at how to set that up. To set up the fellowship maneuver, you must first use retaliation and shield swipe. After having performed both these skills, Smashing Stab will now output a fellowship maneuver. Once you've successfully performed a fellowship maneuver, you'll need to set up Smashing Stab again to perform another fellowship maneuver. This is a very valuable skill for interrupting targets that you couldn't otherwise interrupt. Use it or lose it.